So with that, I'd love to open up the floor to questions and comments from our board. And I will repeat the questions so that the microphone can pick them up as well.
Mike, I had a question.
Yes.
So maybe Rusty can help us with this. I had always been under the impression that we would be able to go back to the state for 10 years should we ask for a funding project. And is there some better information from the state board since you met with them, such that if we fund part of a project now, and we're to try to fund the rest of the project, is there a minimum amount of time between those requests?
So you're saying that if you have a smaller project now, you won't be able to go back for a second project in, let's say, 3 years or 4 years.
Right. So
I don't believe that really is a function of the project itself.
yeah.
If you were to do a Renovators New project, then you can't go back in 3 to 4 years and say, oh, we've got another project, unless the population just takes off and you need to expand because of that, for that very reason.
Is that limited to the same building, or could it apply to a different building?
No, the same building can have multiple projects.
Right.
Where the danger when you go into multiple projects is that sometimes in order to do one project, you modify parts of the building, and then the second component of it needs you to undo what you did before. What the state then says is, we're not going to pay for you to undo what we paid for once before.
Right.
So it has to be something that's relatively seamless, and as it moves forward, there's no thought that there's double payment from the part of the state. So you just have to be very cautious about that. And that's also the time when they really don't, the reimbursement is limited to, if you're renovating things and just updating things, that's not eligible for reimbursement.
Right.
Bob?
This is another question, probably Rusty could answer. I'm sorry, Mike.
No offense.
The question was asking me, what happens if the town approves a referendum at the initial amount of the higher amount, and the state decides not to reimburse?
Actually, once you get your referendum approval approved here, then you file your application. The next June, the state puts the budget together, and that's when the project is funded. So are you saying in between that 1 year, if the state says we're not going to fund?
Is there a way that the town could get caught where we've approved the referendum for the full amount, thinking we're going to get reimbursement to bring it down by 46.07%, and then that doesn't happen, and now we're stuck with a project for $38 million or whatever the number is?
Once the state has committed to you, I do not know of any project, once the project was committed and funded, that did not receive the funding from the state. So the question really comes down to, from the time of your application to the time of when you actually get that approval, could something happen? And it's never happened, but there's a possibility. You can never say it's going to be 100%. I mean, in the 30 plus years that I've been doing it, it's never happened. But in the event that happens, what you typically do is you don't try to get too far ahead of yourself. So if any funding, any project, you want to do your development work, in other words, your investigation, your documentation, etc., but not get into the heavy expenditure of the project till that funding is approved. And once that funding is approved, now you can move forward with that the construction costs, which is the vast majority of the cost to the town and reimbursed by the state. So you could use that approach. Other towns can say, no, we won't spend a penny, and just wait till the funding is approved by the state before we spend even a penny. The disadvantage of that is now it'll take you yet another year before you'll be ready to go out to construction. So when you evaluate what the escalation is in terms of the cost, it far outweighs the amount that you would have spent in preparation for that funding timeline to be approved.
So if the project was approved and for some reason reimbursement did not come through, the town would only be on the hook for any money spent up to that time, and then the project could be.
Then you could
stopped.
choose to stop the project because you haven't committed to anybody. You haven't gone forward with any commitments contractually.
If I could just comment as well. You know, we went up to the state, Bob, and that's a question that we kind of vetted quite a bit on our committee. It doesn't really happen. I mean, once the project, you know, once we get approval, when we submit the documents, we're going to get our reimbursement. I mean, it's nothing in life is completely guaranteed, I suppose, but Rusty's been doing this a lot longer than I have, and he's never seen it not happen. So it's the numbers with the reimbursement are the numbers that we would be seeing. Yeah. Yes. So the question is, what if we delay the demolition of the building, which is the wing right over here? Well, I can speak on the fact that we don't necessarily have to demolish the building over there. We've decided to because we kind of feel like the town doesn't like to necessarily have vacant buildings. We have a great use, as Pam explained. We think we have some great uses for the wing over here. However, over there, it's pretty dilapidated. And we feel like we could use it as fields or parking or something like that. But we don't have to demolish that. And quite frankly, if we didn't demolish it, we chose not to, we could reduce the cost of this project as it sits right now by, I think, about $1 million. Where that's going to cost us $1 million to take it down because there's hazmat issues with it. So we have to dispose of that properly. So we don't necessarily have to take that down. And it's a question we certainly are open to debate on. Yes. Rusty, would you comment on that? The question is, would the state potentially pay in 10 years for demolition of the wing that we're looking at taking down?
When you do your project, and if you say that your project only relates to the addition on the west side, and that's the extent of the project, and you basically would have to turn that other part of the building over to the town. If you're not demolishing it at that point, you're basically saying it's no longer part of the Board of Education of the school system. So at that point, trying to get the state to then say we'll pay for the demo on it, I don't think that'll happen because it'll be considered a town property, no longer a Board of Ed property.
Yes.
I just have a quick question. We're talking about phasing out over the series of 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, versus how long again did this initial project that we would like to do, how long does that estimate it would take from start to finish?
So what we're talking about as a committee, and the question is, how long would it take with some of the other options that we presented tonight?
No, this option.
Oh, with this option? Okay.
I know the other ones would take an infinite.
Yeah, they could take up to 5 years, actually, the other options, because of trying to transition kids. But this is only projected to take 18 months, right? 18 months to 2 years. And, you know, I don't know if I did a good enough job of even explaining the fact that we're going to have savings because we can bid this out as one project. We have a contractor that can work on both of these at the same time, that's going to save us money because also, obviously, if it saves time, it saves money. But because they can work on both of them, they can bid on it as one project. We're saving money, which is, again, why you see a lower number as what we presented tonight.
And obviously an educational positive to do it quickly instead of saying, let's piecemeal over the next 10 years.
Yes, the comment is it's an educational positive to do it in the manner which we're proposing. And there's no doubt about it. That's something that the committee really strongly feels, you know, what it would do to our kids to have them in a potentially 5-year project with a piecemeal approach or any of these other things that we don't feel are the right option. I mean, my kids are going to I don't want my kids to go through that. And I'm sure most parents don't. I mean, I don't know that I'd even send my kids here. Honestly, I'd have to really think about it. So I feel very strongly that we're heading in the right direction with this. Yes.
When you were talking about hazmat, you were talking about PCB. Did anybody address asbestos? In the 50s and 60s, you've got asbestos in your floor tiles and your ceiling tiles. and some in the caulkings also were asbestos. Was that looked into, or is that all cost inclusive with the removal?
So my understanding, and Rusty, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but we did a asbestos mitigation on these schools already. Now, is there a possibility that there's asbestos in the walls if we were to take a wall down that hasn't been touched? That is possible. But in the areas in which we're touching, I think we feel that there is not. Is that accurate,
It's been
Rusty?
removed?
Well, we're actually carrying a budget number for asbestos in this estimate because we're carrying numbers for lead paint,
Yeah.
and also for asbestos because we're going to be updating the toilets, the bathrooms, and those fittings you couldn't get into them, so that has to be abated. But all that is carried in the budget that we have.
One other question, Rusty, while you're up there. Between the gymatorium and the proposed new building, are you aware of what's underground there now?
There are some tanks out there. There's a water storage tank.
There's 2 fire suppressant tanks there,
Right.
one 10,000, one 30,000 gallons.
Yes.
That's a lot of tank and not much room to
And
work.
one of the reasons that we've moved the building, there's a connector there, that we're trying to avoid having to undo things and maintain things that we can. But we have to also look at, will that have the appropriate capacity? There
For the
may
new
be
school, too.
for the
Right.
for the addition. So we may have to look at a pump. We may have to look at some things. But these are discussions that we've had with the engineers, and they've been out here. We were all out here looking at the different conditions to say, let's try to anticipate as much as possible.
Thank you.
Yes.
I agree with the communication part of this. This is a pretty spread out town. Getting the word out to people out on Denison Hill and those areas is very difficult because you're right, a lot of people don't have computers, a lot of people don't watch TVs, but they come out to vote. So I think the communication part with the community, with the residents, is very important for this project. To let them know exactly what's going, because even here, I mean, it's all the same people that show up. Getting the residents to show up is very difficult to do. So, but here again, they do show up to vote. So that's a big challenge, the communication part of it. It really is.
And we're taking it very seriously. We feel like that's a kind of a weakness last time. It was difficult to communicate, and we have a group that's dedicated primarily just to that. Mike did a great job and has done a great job so far, and we have a good plan, and we want people to be educated. We're not just trying to sell this project. I mean, we feel very strongly this is the right project, but people have a right to their own opinions. But if they're not informed properly, then they won't be able to make an educated decision. And I think once informed, as I think we all are tonight, there's no question as to why we're going the direction we are and how much sense it makes for the town. Pam, you had a comment?
Just 2 things I think are really important to talk about. The first of all is the move. So one of the things that we looked at is that's a cost savings in and of itself. Having, again, lived through that renovation, one of the biggest costs was moving teachers, supplies, and having to unanticipated moves when the building plan doesn't go as you think it's going to, and then having that impact educationally on students is extremely disruptive, and I wouldn't want to put our students through that. So in Westerly, it was Westerly High School. They were great about it, but I'm going to tell you it was the most disruptive experience that I've lived through as an educator. But we also saved money in not doing that by not having multiple moves. The other thing that I think is really important that I want to share with you is that middle school wing. So I think before you decide what you're going to do with that wing, you really need to look at, is it marketable to somebody else? So, look at UConn. Are they looking for a space? They have Avery Point, but are they looking to expand programming? Look at other options, and they may come in and renovate because it makes sense for them. But if you never put that option out there, you'll never know. So, and I don't mean to always talk about Westerly as my experience, and I want you to know that I'm not just saying this, I lived it. One of the things that we looked at was the partnership classrooms because we had extra space and we were renovating the whole building, but there was a wing on the first floor in the admin building, and I said, let's repurpose that and do a partnership program with Bradley Lifespan. So we actually built classrooms, and Bradley Lifespan came in. They renovated the entire space, floor to ceiling technology didn't cost the district a thing. We got reduced tuition, and that was a huge cost savings to the district over time. Things like that, thinking differently about what we do and not rush to do the first thing, but think in the long run, how are we going to save money, how are we going to generate money, and how are we going to bring improvements to the town? And that's really what we need to look at. Thank you.
And the great thing is Pam's kind of heading up that subgroup, so we'll have some of those thoughts for you, and we have some of them tonight. We plan to really have something substantial before we get this thing to a referendum. Other questions? Am I good to take from the audience? Yes.
Comment, a couple of questions. For Mike, in the communication area, when we did the plan of conservation and development, we set up some regional discussion groups all over town, hopefully in their area, up at Village Lake, etc. And it helped to get the word out to the folks and to hear in small venues their concerns, and we could answer them better than in a large forum. Secondly, practical matter. Is there consideration for the long-term movement of food back and forth across that large expanse every day over time, and will the high school, middle school be getting the hot meals that they deserve? One comment. Second question is, if this high school is to be used for rethinking, repurposing, are there hazmat issues here that have not been financially addressed that will have to be addressed if that repurposing and rethinking goes into place?
So a couple questions. One, have we given thought to the transport of food from the centralized kitchen at the elementary school to the high school? We're only going to serve cold food, is what we decided. That was a joke. So we did actually think a lot about that, Bill. And this is not something this is done at many other schools. And there are special units that would be used to transport the food. And this is something that, because we're not building a kitchen in both schools, we're going to save quite a bit of money doing that. And that's why we're doing it. So we would have certain equipment, and we do contract our lunch program as well. So it's something where we would work all those details out. That's not going to be an issue. To your second question, which was the use of these facilities, is there, if someone else were to come in and want to use them, are we allocating funds for that use? So generally speaking, if somebody wants to come in and lease space from us, a lot of times that party will actually pay to renovate the space. I mean, certainly we have to talk to the suitors and see what they're thinking about. But the other thing to consider is, even though there's certain maybe hazmat PCB issues, those standards are for schools. So a different facility, I'd say if the town wanted to come in and just use it for a town space, there's different criteria. So they don't necessarily need to remedy anything because the criteria isn't as stringent because it's not a school building.
But I saw on the material that it could be used for 504 kids, an alternate ed program. Those would be our kids and conceivably kids from other schools that would be using that facility, and therefore the hazmat issue would apply.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. And what we think and the research we've done is that people that would want to come in and potentially take the building, lease the building from us, would potentially be willing to pay for modifications. And this has really been done. I mean, these people are looking for space. It didn't take us but one day, considering this idea, to come up with a couple of people right away that we think have interest in the facilities. So we certainly don't have a signed contract. I mean, right now we don't even know, that's what I want to get to tonight, is say we're going to go forward with this. So then we can really seriously engage these folks. But we think the cost would be to them. And we feel that there's potential revenue for our community. This can be a revenue producing situation for us. And that's exciting. So not only are we saving money on efficiencies with our new buildings, but we're making money in the deal. I mean, this is a forward-thinking idea that makes a lot of sense. Yes?
Are you planning to talk to the people who will work in this new building in order to make decisions? Because as a teacher, I already see issues. I'm really happy that the town has eventually decided to do this. I think that it's about time that the town will be travel to the school, we drive by and we have travel. So it's time to do this, but I see that we have to do at the same time, push like that, and we have to.
Thank you. That's a very good comment. I commented on this last meeting. We did meet in advance of putting this plan together with administrators. So that's the principals of both buildings, Sue Costa, who's the special education administrator, Peter Nero, who's the superintendent. We had several meetings with them, and they are on board with this plan. This is a footprint. We realize there might be a couple tweaks. But the other thing is I am already scheduled to present what I would like to be this plan at a January 6th meeting with the North Stonington Elementary teachers. So the entire faculty, I've been invited to their meeting to present this, and I'm planning to do so, but again, looking for direction, and I'm sure I'll be doing it as well. Kristen's nodding her head saying, Mike, we'd love to have you there, and I'm happy to come. And Mr. Nero has a follow-up comment.
Well, again, I have been involved in these projects, and I will tell you that once we get to a point where we're pretty close to what we want, then what we would do is we would meet each department and say, what are you looking for with that? This is strictly the structure itself. So when you start sitting down, say, for example, when, my familiarity with science teachers, you would sit down and say, what do you want in the physics lab? What are the things you're looking for in the physics lab? Some of them are going to be standard because we're going to be dealing with ed specs at some particular point in time. And the ed specs would change, but not a whole heck of a lot from what they were before, Rusty, I don't think, except in the fact that you're not going to be doing, if you're not doing as we were going to do everything on this side of the street, everything would be modern on the other side of the street. So when you get to that point where you're going to be saying, okay, we're close to the project, this is the dollar amount, this is what we're going to spend, then we start pulling teachers and by departments and start focusing on what you're going to need.
Okay, but what we need is one more classroom, maybe it's too late. Now we have 3 empty classrooms.
And I'm going to say that, respectfully, I'm going to say we know what the dollar amount is, we know what we're going to be able to spend, and in all due respect, we've come down considerably in space and classrooms to get to a point where we're trying to make it work for us.
I think we've given a lot of consideration to the square footage, and we know what we can do as far as per pupil in the square footage that we have. So we know based on what our population is, and with a 20% increase in population, we can accommodate our student population with these facilities. Do we maybe need to tweak a couple of things to possibly? But I think we've got a really, really good thing here where if we're changing a couple things, but we want to hear your feedback. That's where we're at right now. We want to move this forward, but we still are hearing feedback. I want to make that very clear. Yes, Wayne.
The last meeting I brought up the question of the addition to the high school, middle school for the gymnatorium. Mike and Jay and I spent a little time on the athletic field yesterday, and our preliminary calculations, what we laid out, we're taking a major chunk of the athletic grass, outfield of the baseball field, and eliminating the middle school soccer field. Any ideas of replacing that grass with anything else, another location?
Yeah, Wayne, I want to thank you for taking the time too with a couple committee members and spending that time to look at that. I know Rusty and I walked the grounds as well, and if there's some sort of minor modifications that we need to make, we're going to make them. I'm hesitant to comment on that, Wayne. I hope you can appreciate this. That information kind of came in yesterday. I don't think it's any project altering situation, so we'll bring it up at our next ad hoc meeting and discuss it, but I don't really want to comment on it right now before the committee's had time to vet that information. And again, I don't see that as being an obstacle to us moving this project that I'm presenting forward, so we will get back to you on that.
You're eliminating soccer field and baseball.
So
there's also irrigation to the athletic field in that area also. So I'm just bringing it up.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's going to be addressed.
Again, I want to be able to vet the information, Wayne, and make sure that we want to double measure things. We want to take a close look at it. We've got a good project. Again, I don't see that as being a huge obstacle to moving things forward, and we're going to end up with some extra space in some other areas because of what we're doing. So certainly these are details that I think we could definitely work out. And again, I appreciate you taking the time to point this out to us. We're definitely going to talk about it at our next meeting. Yes.
the idea of keeping costs down. You know that.
I do know that. Thank you.
One thing I would like to see is a projection of, we've got some projections over 4%. That maybe the boards can come up with when it's presented, you know, later on to the public or even during. Because we've got the emergency building, which is still going on, and I feel that the mill rate can go up with that. If you can, that'd be really helpful, I think, because a lot of it's gonna come down to, for a personal choice, can a person afford it or it's gonna have to move? Because perfect example, senior citizens got zero from the United States government, which doesn't surprise me. Their insurance went up, you know, so already they lost. Now, if they come up with a high mill rate, you're gonna have people might have lived here for years and have to move. So I'd like to see that presented with the whole package. I mean, I know you're excited about the package. It's a good idea, I think, to have a school on one side. I don't like the idea of having the other school knocked down. Let's see what they knock down. Anyway, if we can get a projection of that when it's presented to everybody or during even boards, I would think the Board of Finance and the Selectmen and even the Board of Education get together and really show the people what they're going to be looking at in the next few years.
Thank you for the comments. The comment is basically we have the EMS facility, which is coming back, and I actually attended a meeting Tuesday night. They need more money to complete their project. It looks like we need that facility as well. We've approved some money there. Basically their situation is much different than ours. They kind of came in and it was explained at their meeting when they got their numbers. There was quite a long time that happened between when they got their numbers and when they actually went to referendum for their money. And there was a disconnect there. So I want to assure everybody, just bringing that project up, that our numbers are very accurate. And we know this because we are looking them up right now. We don't have a lapse in time. Our numbers are accurate. Now, to your point, it's going to be an increase. I mean, we're not trying to hide that. We're talking about a potential 11% increase here. And if if the selectmen or whomever have to approve more money for the EMS complex, that's going to be even more. Not a lot more, but probably a little bit more. I think the project that they presented and we passed was going to be budget neutral. It would have no effect on our taxes because we had a lot of debt coming off the books. But this extra money they need is certainly going to have an impact to our tax rate, as will this project. I don't know how to answer the question about that there's going to be people that I know are strapped. I know that. But I'm just going to say, we've put this project off and the EMS project off for a long time. I think we're the generation that are going to have to absorb this cost. There's no question about it. This stuff needs to be done. We cannot put it off any longer. Anyone who's sitting here that goes through this presentation and says, we can ignore the safety concerns, we can ignore the asbestos, the hazmat issues, we can't ignore these things. And as we've tried to present tonight, and I'm trying to really hit this home, the project we're presenting it takes care of everything for the least amount of money. There's really not another option that I don't think there's another option because it's not just me looking at this. We've had a committee looking at it for years and years and years, and Rusty's been around for 10 years. I mean, we've batted this thing around. I can tell you with absolute full confidence and the support of the unanimous decision by our committee that this is the project we need to move forward for the town. Yes.
I'm glad you addressed your prices because I had the same question. I was there on Tuesday. Other people may know, but I can't tell from your diagrams, what are the buildings that you're thinking of not using, destroying, whatever? I can't make it out on your plans.
Can you see up there, Ann? Okay. So what we're talking about, just for clarification, this building, which is where we are right now, the media center, this wing, we are sitting in this wing right now, we are going to continue to use. It was built 96. We don't have any issues with hazmat because it was built in 96. Superintendent's moving right in. We're not allocating funds for this because the building's fine. They just move their offices in, special education, they move in here. Not students, but the offices. This wing over here, we are proposing to be demolished. Certainly up for debate. Certainly up for debate. We can talk about it, but that's what we've proposed here, okay? If a suitor comes in and they want to pay to fix it and pay us rent to use it, I think we'd love to hear that. This wing over here, this is the one we talked about tonight, Ann, that we feel we have people out there that probably right now would love to come in and lease that space. So, okay? So that one right there. And that's the wing that's over this way. That's the wing that we have 50s science labs that were built before we landed on the moon. Does that answer your question? You good? Yeah. Okay. Bill?
Has there been any discussion about it being a green school?
That's a great question, Bill. That was one of the first things we talked about as a committee. Could we make it a green building? I am a huge environmentalist and personally would like to see us make this a green building. And when we discuss some of the things we still think are options for cost savings, there are some companies out there that we're going to have come into our meeting to present us different ideas. North Stonington is a community it's an environmental community. I mean, people move here because it's rural. You know, they love the environment. I think most of us, I'm a hippie, I guess, and a lot of us are. And we want, and not just for that, but we need to take care of our environment and we want to show our kids that it's important. And the youth of today, they want to do it too. So, we are definitely looking into that. And it's something that, I don't have enough information on it at this time, but it's a focus of our committee. Let's just say that. Yes.
Would the renovation of the elementary school be happening while the students are in session?
That's a good question. So the phasing for the elementary school, there's going to be parts that are probably going to be happening while the kids are there. We think we can do quite a bit of it while in the summer. So ideally what would happen is everybody says, okay, let's go forward. Then we pass the referendum. So in 2017, we would begin that summer when school gets out, construction on the elementary school. And we wouldn't be able to get it done over the summer. So there'd be some phasing that would come into play. And we would be very sensitive to that. I mean, and Pam is familiar with this. She mentioned it. I mean, this isn't something this is done at many other schools. So we'll be very cognizant of the kids' experience and them being able to learn. And we do whatever it takes to make sure. And Rusty's very familiar with all this stuff, but it would impact the students a little bit on the elementary school. But certainly this project, I think, has less impact than any of the others that we'd considered.
I'm just concerned because I heard just from people when the computer room and the preschool rooms were put on, they had the plastic that was put down so that you had asbestos or whatever was in the air would not penetrate into the hallway. So I've heard that some of the teachers who were up there have become sick since then. Just putting that out there. I'm in that building.
So are my kids. Yeah. As far as the remediation of the toxic materials that are in the building, that has to be done. We can't do that where it would be exposed to any people. I mean, what we know now, and this is part of the thing, you might say if you've been around for a long time, well, I was in schools that were worse than this. Well, we know now things that we didn't know then, and we cannot ignore things that we know now. That's like saying, we didn't have seatbelts. Well, I mean, we have them because we need them. And I'm going to tell you this, and I don't think I mentioned it. We had to test the paint at the schools with this testing. If we had done this project 2 years ago, we didn't have to test the paint. It wasn't required. It's going to cost us, I don't know, maybe $1 million more because now we have remediation to do because our paint came back with PCBs in them. Now, I look at that and say, I'm kind of happy because I'd rather know it and not and deal with it. You know what I mean? So maybe it's a blessing that it happened that way. It's going to cost us more. But again, listen, we have to deal with this stuff. But that is not something you'd have to worry about. My children are there. I know your kids are there and you're there personally. I'm there sometimes. It wouldn't be an issue. We would take care of that. It's not something that's going to be an issue.
Yes, Nick. as we go through the presentation, of course, the issue of cost is going to come up. But the other part we have to look at, I just made some notes, okay? If we look at our town outlook and the profile, to be considered a proactive town, a complete town, a respected town that will attract residents, will attract economic development, a town that will have a high quality of life, and actually will increase the value of the homes, the businesses, and the real estate. So this project is going to lend a lot of other attributes in addition to the education and the school facilities. So I think you ought to put a maybe consideration of some comments in your presentation that this has more benefits than detriment, you know, and we've enjoyed no new taxes for schools for over 20 years. So I think the people, I hate to say it, we're kind of due to catch up, and the price tag may be a little more. But I remember when we retired the note of the last school project, we chuckled at how small the payment and interest was and the interest rate that we had. So maybe we can look at a little bit of that to put the positive spin on the benefits that the town's going to get out of this. If the town doesn't grow, and understand, houses is a growth. We've got some good things happening at Fisher Control. We've got some good things happening down at the warehouse and distribution, and we have other people looking at it. And I believe that this will be a benefit to those people who are looking to be in a high quality of life town and a community.
Nick, those are great points. I appreciate you pointing that out. You know, last year, just as a citizen, I was very active in wanting to see the project move forward. And I did a lot of research and tried to hand out some studies that had been done, which equate modernizing your school facilities to economic growth. And this is not something that doesn't match up. I mean, this is what happens when you update your facilities. There are economic benefits. There are studies, and I'm happy to provide the ones that I looked up last time, that show you will have prosperity when you do something like this. This isn't a figment of our imagination. It happens. And the other thing on the same token that I did a lot of research on is the benefits, and I think Pam talked a little bit about this, but the benefits that our kids enjoy by having updated facilities. It's not just about like, oh, it's a nice new classroom. No, I mean, they learn better. You know, there's less problems, there's less crime, there's less bullying. I mean, these are true facts. You know, there's studies that support it. And I went through and did a lot of that research last time. So there's so much more that come with doing something like this. And I appreciate your support, Nick, and your comments. Okay. So this, of course, like I said, isn't the last meeting we'll have, but I am making an ask to the Tri-Board. I'd like you to consider our timeline, and maybe that can't be decided on tonight, that's fine. But I definitely would like you to talk about and consider moving this forward so that we can, with authority, kind of move things to the next step. And with that, Mark, I think I'd turn it back over to you.
Thanks very much, Mike, and the members of the ad hoc committee. It's obvious that you've taken this task to heart and have worked very hard in digging very deeply for the community and trying to answer everybody's questions, and I'm sure there's more questions still. So I would suggest that we turn to the tri-boards and ask the question, how did they do relative to the task we set them? We gave them criteria to consider. We gave them issues to address. Did they hit everything? Did they miss anything? What is the general reaction from the boards? Bob?
We met last night, and we had a lot of time in our meeting to discuss where we've been in the last, since the tri-board started and where the ad hoc committee has come from. And obviously we are the Board of Ed. so you probably know where we stand, but the committee as a whole supports the program in its fullest. We have not taken a formal vote on it. We do support its fullest. We think the ad hoc has done a wonderful job. We will continue to work on ed specs to make sure that everything that happens with brick and mortar lines up with our ed specs. As a whole, the Board of Ed is in favor of this project as it is.
Is there anything that they missed, though? Do you feel they covered everything that we tasked them
There's
with?
no questions that came up last night, but
Okay.
With Mike's assurance that as they come up, we'll address them with Mike.
So that's what I'm hearing. The other boards, any other comments? Is there things that you expected to see in this presentation over the last couple months that you haven't seen yet? Yeah, Sean.
I think the committee has done a good job at addressing all the concerns that I have as an individual, and I think that I've heard from the other selectmen. There might be other questions that the selectmen come up with as things evolve as changes occur in the project. But I think everything's been addressed. I think the committee really looked after the, ensuring, looking out for the educational benefit as well as keeping costs down. And, we all wished for a lower price tag on it. But I think, from what I've heard, I think all the other alternatives have been looked at, and that piecemealing things is not the way to go, and that we're better off doing a major project versus separate smaller projects. And it will be a shock as far as what it does to the mill rate. Our mill rate will probably go up next budget time anyway because of the reval. We did lose quite a bit from the grant value of the grand list, so the number, the mill rate itself will go up. But these are things that have to get done. Putting off, we've been looking at this for probably 10 or 12 years. I was involved with it back, 10 years ago when I was on the Board of Ed. I think we got to do something, and today's the day to now's the time to act on it. And I fully support the work that the committee's done. Thank you.
Nick, you have some comments?
Yeah. I'm going to reflect on my own life experience with my own children. They went through Wheeler, they went out, and they all have good occupations, good employment, and they're doing well in life. We have to look, as I have observed in being briefed by the resident troopers time and time again, people go out and take one path or another. And in today's world, it is a very competitive job market. And where you used to think you could go to a corporation or a business and you're going to be there for life, like I did at Electric Boat, 37 years. Well, they right-size, they downsize, they sell it off, and they consolidate it, and only the good survive. And we find that there's two job opportunities. One is that of a successful employment that gives you a good quality of life and gives you the enjoyment to be able to enjoy the better things. The other is minimum wage. And if you are in that category and do not have an education to have upward mobility, you are limited to your quality of life, even your health issues, and everything else that goes with it. I see more and more where even if you have a little better than average education, you still have difficulty surviving in the job market. I think that the responsibility of the community is to give every young adult that comes out of high school the best opportunity to go forward to end up so that they can have positive contributions to the community, to the state, and the nation, okay? And I think that education contributes an awful lot to our quality of life and what we get from those young adults who are in the businesses, the government, and other things. I really think that this project, it has been studied and studied and studied, and I think that maybe the price isn't what we want, but I think the results is what we want, and I feel that the committee, in taking advantage of previous work done by the other committees, and then looking at the overview that some people were questioning, I think it's all been answered, okay? And I think they've done a great job, and I really appreciate the hard work of the committee, the Board of Education, and the other people that have been involved in it. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Dave?
I was involved in the first selection of Rusty's group, which was another group at the time. How long ago was that, Rusty? Was it more than 10 years? Must have been more than 10 years.
Now there's no.
And we've been working on it. I can't say it hasn't been frustrating because we've looked at demographic studies and these studies and that studies and sending the kids out to Montville was the cheapest school we could send them to, which I don't think too many parents would want to send their children to Montville. And I don't think any businesses would want to come to a town that sent their kids 20 miles away to go to school. I think I've agreed that some of the other plans were good and probably I think if we'd started then we would have been a long way from where we are now. But we're still pushing. Mike's done a great job, and your new committee's done a great job, and so did the previous committee. I think I agree that with everything that Nick has said and Sean has said, as far as the fact that there's no way to nickel and dime it at this point. We can't do little parts of it here. We can't do the HVAC and not do, we can't do little parts. We need to do the whole building at once, have everybody in there, all the different trades in there. That's the most efficient and effective way to get it done. I didn't think that it was insane, the last project that had been brought to the people. But obviously the people thought it was more expensive than they wanted to have. I think right now, I think most of the people that are here are in agreement that we can do this. I think that communication is going to be the key to this, to make sure that everybody knows every piece that's going on here and why it's being done there. And also, like you were saying, the extra benefits, and Nick was saying, the extra benefits to the community and to North Stonington as far as bringing in quality companies and businesses. And if we could utilize this facility for satellite from Avery Point or Yukon or Three Rivers or anywhere for night classes, whatever it would be even a bigger plus. Get people into the town and spend money at if you have any stores. But I think we're on the right track. I think we're really on the right track now. I think we need to keep chugging.
Okay, thank you. Any feedback from the Board of Finance? Carol, please.
I'm just going to speak for myself. I'm not going to speak for everyone else, but I was concerned about people that I know that are struggling to make ends meet. I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm just speaking for myself. I have concerns about people that I know in town who are on fixed incomes, like Mr. Rathbun was saying. Everyone's struggling right now, not only with their taxes, but, with the way health care is right now. It's not affordable. And that's just the reality of where people are at right now. And I did want to know if there was a way to piecemeal it, as it were. But you've shown that you've looked at all of these options, and I think you did a very good presentation. It's obviously, that you've spent a lot of time researching and looking at all of the options of how to save money where you can, and you've shown that you've done that. And also, I really like what Pam had to present. I think it's a great way to try to bring some services into town and also generate some revenues to kind of offset some of the costs. So, I mean, personally, as a taxpayer, I think that you've done a great job at, doing what you can with what you have, and we probably are at a point where we really do need to do something and move forward with the town. I graduated from Wheeler. I've lived here for a very long time, and I think that we do need to do something at this point, or we may start. I mean, we're gonna lose people either way. But I think if you can still focus on keeping it as affordable as possible, I think that the people in town that are struggling probably would appreciate that. So, thank you for.
Thanks, Karen. Tim?
Just as a board, we did bring it to the board. We vetted it back and forth. There was a concern on price, as we can see, but we're going to run some numbers coming after the first of the year, see what the financials look like, plug and play, see what budget, stuff like that. So, still working, and Mike's got the numbers, and you guys have done a great job as a committee to work. I could say that you've been knights, and welcome to the volunteer.
Yes, certainly true. Any other final comments? You want to tell a story? Can I ask you to hold till the end?
Oh, all right.
Good, thanks, Ann. So, just a couple of things that my observations. I think, to Tim's point, we need the committee to look at the longer range financial plan, financial management plan of how the town could deal with additional cost projects. And the Board of Finance is going to be considering the Center for Emergency Services impact. They want to roll this in. I think there's ways to look at it. And this is a very big deal in town, right? I mean, this has got to be the biggest thing going on in the town right now. So we need to look at the bigger picture, in my opinion, of how it's going to affect our economic development for the town, the overall viability of the community, and our future as a town. So it's very important that we weigh all these factors in. And I think it's very important to demonstrate to the taxpayers that we're going to manage this project well. Whatever we decide the size of the project is, whatever we decide is going to be in the project, is going to be managed well and with the best benefit for the residents and the taxpayers of the town. And I think the committee did a great job in bringing that information together. It's going to help people understand better what the town is facing, and we'll be more informed as we talk about how we go forward with the town and be able to make a good decision. I think, Wayne, your comment about the athletic fields, we've had some discussions in the past about some other places, land that we want to reclaim. We may have to revisit some of those thoughts and look at it some more. There's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of things in the town that we can take advantage of, but I think we got to make it a little bigger picture as we consider. It's not just trying to put a Band-Aid on a school. We're not just trying to make a new school. We want to look at the whole impact of the town. And it's great that all the boards are together working on this to demonstrate to our citizenry that we do, in fact, have the future of the town at heart. So before we get to Ann's story, I just wanted to get a feel from the boards. Are we comfortable with the ad hoc committee going out now, meeting with the school, meeting with other entities to start to get more feedback on the project?
Yes.
I'm seeing kind of everybody nodding their heads. We're okay to go ahead for the ad hoc to start communicating to the various groups, collecting more input. I would suggest that we come back next month, if that's agreeable, and see where we stand, what the feedback's been up to that date. If there's any adjustments to the plan that you've identified, maybe we'll have some feedback from the Board of Finance about financial management, things down the road, and just continue to keep the communication going here so that we have an opportunity to share that with people. Mike, you have...
I see everybody's heads nodding for us to move forward, and I appreciate everyone's heads nodding. Thank you for that. I want to let you know if you need me at a discussion at any of your meetings, let me know. I'd be happy to come for, if I just need to know in advance. But and if not, that's totally fine too. But thank you.
Thank you.
Mark, do we have a tentative date for the January meeting?
I don't have a January 2016 calendar.
I do.
Hang on.
When's the next meeting? January 16th?
This tripod? That's what they're trying to determine.
I thought he said something earlier.
Yeah, he's
21st of January, if we keep to the same rotation, third Thursday. Everybody comfortable with that? 7 o'clock? Should we try again in this format?
Yes.
Okay, so we're suggesting January 21st, Thursday evening, 7 o'clock, here in the elementary or in the middle school media center.
Yes. Is everybody okay with that?
I'm seeing general consensus and head nodding. So
What's the date?
21st of January?
January 21st, the third Thursday of the month. We'll do another pulse check, see where we are. So great. All right, so Ann, would you like to share a story?
Yeah, I told the people already, but I was in the store and was talking to the store owner, and he said his friend had a daughter who went to Stonington's wonderful Shining New School, high school, was miserable. She transferred to North Stonington, and she has been very happy. She likes the class size, she likes her principal. So somebody's doing a good job here, and it'd be nice to keep it going. So,
Thank you. Any other final public comments or questions? Okay, thank you, everyone. I think we're right on time here.